Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in to the meditation about forgiveness. And first of all, would like to thank Robin Jongbloed and her team for inviting me to speak a little bit about forgiveness and to do this meditation about forgiveness. I think February is going to be quite an exciting month to see how many wonderful people are speaking about this incredible Ho'oponopono meditation, really about forgiveness, forgiving ourselves and forgiving others and what we have done as a we, as a global we, to this earth, to the elements, to the animals, to the people and to ourselves. I would like to tell a little bit about what I would like to share. My name is Claudia van Zuiden and currently I live in the Netherlands. I have lived nearly 30 years in Scotland and I'm just recently back to my motherland, which is surrounded by water, beautiful rivers, beautiful people, beautiful animals, and I feel there is a very strong sense of we here. When I go to the canals and I go to the water and sit with the water and perhaps pray with the water, there's a lot of birds around me, wild geese and so forth, and I feel a strong connection with them, and somehow they're not even frightened. When I sit there, there is this connection that I really can't describe, but it's very, very pleasant to experience. And I do pray to the water there and speak about forgiveness a lot. Forgiveness of the pollution that we're causing to the earth, to the water, which then affects all of us, our human nature, and it affects also the animals and the land. And then, of course, the rivers, the water all go to the sea. So it is this super interconnectedness feeling around it that I get when I go to these places. I am part of a facilitating group in the world that gives 16 guidelines for life training. They are based on Buddhism. They're based in Buddhism tradition, but also in Western science. And Western science mainly to sort of validate what was already known in the Eastern traditions, and also the combination of what we are finding in science, how that can benefit what we are needing right now, this awareness that we have this cognition and that we have the ability to change how we think, which is then going to affect how we act and how we relate to others and how we're going to find meaning in life. So one of the guidelines is forgiveness. And forgiveness is a very powerful guideline because, first of all, we start to forgive ourselves. So how do we do that? So we learn in this course techniques of mind-heart reflection, mindfulness techniques to become aware, first of all, of our actions and how it felt. So we start to make this mind-heart connection. And we start to feel and think more with the mind, heart, and also with the gut. So we're making this full connection of our capacity that we have as humans. And what we find is that when we make that connection with the mind, the heart, and the gut feeling, there is this different feeling arising, which is more an altruistic, a more compassionate feeling that can arise, and we want to share that. We want to also help others to achieve that. So the 16 guidelines is part of universal education, and universal education programs are really about making sure that we use all of our capacity of our mind and our brain and our thinking and our creative thinking and our linear thinking and all that. So we can develop all these qualities that we already have those seeds from within ourselves. So forgiveness is one of those potentials that we have. We are all potential. So I really like when we work with the Ho'oponopono meditation that we first of all say, I love you. I love you has already this kindness in it. We accepting already, there's an acceptance in that we all make mistakes. We all think things that are perhaps not so beneficial and can actually have caused harm. So first of all, to say I love you already creates a space for forgiving qualities to arise, to really start to feel this feeling of honoring and accepting that we love ourselves, which is very difficult, but also that we love our community or the people that perhaps have maybe done harm to us as well. We love also what we are praying to when we do this meditation. We say, water, I love you. Water, before you drink it, I love you. We have that connection. We make the interconnectedness of all things already like that. Instead of thinking, oh, I'm drinking the water goes inside my body. Most of my body is water. So when I love that, I start to love myself. So there is actually no more this and that. I really feel then when we make the prayer of forgiveness to the water, we also give that already to ourselves, to our own body, that resonance, that frequency starts to then flow through our own body. And then that water has been drank by so many other beings before. Like my dear friend Pat McCabe said, this water has been drunk by all of our relatives, by the deer, by the eagle, by our ancestors. So there's also that. So I'm honoring them too. I love you, and we're acknowledging them. So then when we talk about I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, and take that responsibility for that. I'm really sorry that we have polluted the water. We have killed unnecessarily amount of animals in the world, and even without any respect. Some people still, they use animals for food or for clothing or fur, and that is done especially in the indigenous culture still in a very respectful way. But when we see what the majority of animals have to go through, it's just heartbreaking. So we can really say, I'm really sorry that my community is still not aware of the effect that their actions have. So I'm really sorry about that, and I can take steps to maybe spreading some more awareness around that as well. But I forgive them, and I forgive the whole feeling at large that has been caused by harming you that way. So, and there is this thing that because there's interconnectedness and the frequency, how it is being perceived by others, how it is when you walk into a room, people can sort of feel your energy, what kind of mood you're in, and we become a bit maybe careful sometimes when energy is maybe not congruent with our own energy. When we have this sense of true regret that comes with forgiveness, which is different than guilt, I believe, the sincere regret with the hope and the determination, or perhaps the resolve not to practice that again, not to do more harm that way again, even if it's just for 1 minute or for 1 hour. You can set sort of a time so it becomes more of a habit. We're starting to train our mind into thinking and acting differently. So we can then say, please forgive me for being ignorant before about that I was not aware, that now I'm more aware of, that I have a choice in how I behave and how I think. Please forgive me for that. I take full accountability for that. So that is also, I think, part of this prayer, this collective prayer. And also then when we then say, we give our apologies and say, thank you, thank you. You know, there's this shared humility in that. Shared humility of, I thank you for listening to me. Thank you for accepting this, for giving me an opportunity to express my regret and to be witnessed in that way, often in communities or in families. There is an honoring in that. There is the feeling that maybe that was this big burden that we were carrying in our backpack, full of stones, heavy stones that were that the forgiveness, because we couldn't forgive some harmful actions we've done in our past or harmful thoughts we had, we were carrying them in the backpack. And, you know, we have an opportunity to let them go and say, well, you know, I'm taking these stones out and, you know, I have sincere regret and I have a resolve that I will really be more mindful, be more aware of my actions next time. And please forgive me for that. And I forgive myself for acting that way, behaving that way, thinking that way. So yeah, that's something I would like to really do a meditation about based on the 16 guidelines. So perhaps, you know, are you, maybe we can take a moment for just taking a deep breath, just becoming present and just letting go maybe of some previous thoughts that you had. And just bring to mind a moment in your life or a situation in your life when you felt that forgiveness was really present. Recall that situation. And who was there? Was it your family, with friends, relatives? In detail, just bring everything to mind. And how did it feel? How did it feel when you experienced forgiveness? How do you think it might have felt for the others who were there? And then perhaps you can put these feelings and thoughts into a few words. And recall them. And maybe you want to keep them in your mind, and maybe you want to write them down later, so you can reflect on them. And also, I would like to ask you, in the 16 guidelines we work with the role models. So, can you reflect on a role model, someone that you know, who really embodies the quality of forgiveness? Who is that person? And what are the qualities that you like from that person? What inspires you to be like that person? And what does forgiveness mean to you? It means for a lot of things for a lot of people, and how we in the 16 guidelines sort of define forgiveness is like it's the process of letting go of resentment and anger towards myself and others. There's a sense of freedom in that when we can do that. So, how do you think it would make a difference in your life if you would apply forgiveness? Would it make a difference? Like a beautiful quote I like from Victor Hugo is like, hatred is the winter of the heart. So when we start to forgive, it's often very difficult because often we have the wish to forgive, but it doesn't mean we need to accept what's happened, but we can forgive. So it's often difficult then to know how to forgive. So what could be the first small step that you could do or you could take to forgive yourself? What would be the first small step that you could do to have some self-compassion? One of the role models in the 16 guidelines is Desmond Tutu. He was really a man who stood out and with the reconciliation in South Africa to really show what true forgiveness meant by listening to the people, hearing them, both sides. And the opportunity of forgiveness was so present. And even though he can be very challenging at times with people, and he has these public quarrels, even with Nelson Mandela, he somehow really embodies this forgiveness. And he also admits that he's very sometimes struggling with that, like even at home to say, I'm sorry to his wife. So we all sometimes find it very hard to practice forgiveness. But it is possible. It's possible if we start to maybe start with a small burden that we carry, that we maybe can't forgive ourselves about, some things that we've done in the past. Just a small thing before we start to unpack all those stones out of our backpack that I spoke about earlier. Instead of taking the biggest stone out, maybe take a small stone that you have put in that bag, something that you've done and that was quite maybe harmful, but not on a very high level, maybe 50% or 40% or something like that. Just try and see if you can forgive about yourself about that. And then we can start to forgive others too, slowly, slowly. We can see in their actions that everybody has sometimes the wish to be happy. They all have the wish to be happy. And sometimes they take certain actions that they think are going to be helpful, and perhaps they're only helpful to themselves, but in the larger scheme of things, they're maybe not so helpful. But sometimes, when we have this forgiveness, they say there is an issue also of a situation that we can reflect on within ourselves, and we can give it a place within ourselves and start to forgive ourselves or the situation. We also come to agree that perhaps that's where it needs to stay. We don't have to take it further. We can just forgive it in that situation as it was. We don't maybe have to go to the people as such that we had that conflict with. That is all, there can be also a forgiving in that. Maybe that is a better solution. But we can let the hatred and the anger, we can let that subside if possible and dissolve. And a good practice is then inhaling the quality of forgiveness. And what you exhale like a dark smoke, smoky, like from the fire, from the chimney. And you imagine you breathe it out, but it's neutral. It's neutral when it comes out. It's back into its natural state. So, but you're breathing in the quality of forgiveness in the whole body, and you're breathing out everything that is like hatred and anger, and you resolve it that way. So, that role model that we spoke about, if you would ask them, if you would be struggling with a certain issue about forgiveness, what advice do you think they would give you? What would they say to you that might be the first step that you could take? So that's something I would like to leave you with today. And I certainly practice this beautiful Ho'oponopono quite regularly, and I think it's very helpful. And I love it in how many traditions we have this similarity in prayer and how they all come together as one, and how we all come together as one human family in this group as well, and that we can share our thoughts and tools that help us to create more forgiveness in our heart, letting go of anger, letting go of hatred, and create a more we and me way of thinking and being, knowing that everything is interconnected, that whatever I do is also because of to the help of others. So I thank you all for listening to this, and I wish you all a very wonderful day, and thank you for everyone who made this possible for us to share what we know and what we experience ourselves. Thank you very much. Bye for now.